condos and land. And then also coinciding with that, our inventory levels of property that's available for sale has dropped by over 40% since its peak back in 2009. So we got the combination of people buying property and also inventory levels dropping. I can see the corner being turned pretty soon here, if it hasn't already.
I think you're right. Part of what we thought was interesting, there were 10 of us at the meeting, and we all had different ideas, and everybody kind of talks at once, etc. But everyone had a little bit of a different take on the market turning, or has it turned, or when is it going to turn, or what's actually going on. But you only know the market has turned when you're looking at it from the other side, and you realize, okay, it was September of 2011, October 2011, and we don't know that until we get probably to 2012 and you look back. But we are finding now, when somebody calls and wants to look at property, here was another interesting one that was talked about. Everybody seems to think they want a short sale, they want a bank-owned property. Well, of the inventory that's available right now, only, I think it's 3% of the current listings are bank-owned or short sales. So that's pretty interesting. Now, Casey, I know we can't say that there won't be more bank-owned or there won't be more foreclosures, etc. But don't you think that we're at least getting hopeful that the banks are going to work with people?
Yes, I actually think that, and that number more is like 2.5%. So that says 97.5% of the inventory out there is just regular sales, and with nearly 450 escrows going on, 97% of those are probably just regular sales, not short sales or bank-owned properties.
There's another thing that everybody loses sight of. We'll often have someone that comes in the office, and the first thing they want to talk about is a short sale, or they want something that a bank owns. They're looking for this really great deal. Well, what they've lost sight of is the really great deal might be the person that, let's say, bought a Maui El Dorado condominium for $70,000. So it might not be the bank owned where they've already got $450,000 in it that was owed on it, and they're fighting from a different direction. The other owner who owns the property and has decided to sell it and maybe has retired by now or wants to buy a different type of property. We had somebody yesterday that's looking, they just can't travel as much as they did, so they're looking to do something maybe Palm Desert, Palm Springs, so they're looking to sell, but they're going to do a great deal for someone, so that it's not like short sales necessarily make sense.
Not always distressed properties like REOs or foreclosures or short sales tend to have issues as far as remodel work that needs to be done, and could be structural problems with the properties. Now, I'm not saying that all short sales and foreclosures have issues, but the majority of them do. And there is going to be a lot of work by a buyer that comes in to buy a property like that. Even though they may be able to get it at a really good price, who knows, maybe you might have to put a couple $100,000 into the property just to live there.
I looked at one the other day with Elizabeth Quayle in Napili, and it was kind of interesting, but I got to admit, getting over there, I don't think I could do it. I don't want to do it. It would be way too hard, and it's still in a way a lot of money, and it's totally trashed. And the lender's going to do nothing. There's going to be no warranties, etc. So I don't see until the bank is ready to almost give it away that they're going to find a buyer, whereas you can still buy a nice property in the same area that you'll really enjoy and still has its kitchen cabinets and fixtures.
One of the biggest drawbacks of a foreclosure is the bank is not required to give any disclosures on the property, obviously, because they don't know anything about the property. All they did was loan money against it. They've taken it back as mortgaged on the property when the buyer or the borrower failed to make their payment. So when you buy, when you buy a foreclosed property, it does not have any disclosures, and so you're taking a pretty big risk.
Absolutely. There's no question. When you're doing the foreclosure thing, there is a pretty big risk. So I think that is a whole other game.
When you're going to be spending that kind of money, you might want to look at the properties that are out there that are regular sales, where the sellers do give disclosures. There's warranties that could be passed along with the property. it's just a much safer thing to do.
You know, another area that we talked about this morning, and I think is interesting to get into, you know, we were talking about unemployment and how that affects all of us, and statistics, and you know, there are some interesting unemployment statistics that are going on right now. And one of the things that we also talked about is if you don't have a job, you know, and you happen to be one of these statistics, it's a tragedy whether there's only 7% unemployment or 50% or 1%. When you're the one without a job, it's a tragedy and life is hard. But I think from the standpoint of people that are ready to buy real estate right now and they look at some of these guidelines, what were your statistics on unemployment, Case?
Well, right now we're still at 9.1% unemployment nationally, but compared to the early 80s, which was topped over 10% plus, we're not actually doing as bad as those unemployment figures. Also, I'm looking at a graph right now that shows how unemployment cycles from about 50 years ago till now. Unemployment numbers tend to peak. They climb quickly, they peak, and then they fall away pretty quickly. And so if the past is any indication of the future, there's going to be a point in time here pretty quickly where the consumer is going to have more confidence in the economy. They're going to start spending some money. People who build goods and provide services are going to have to increase their payrolls to accommodate the demand, and the whole cycle will start the other direction, and our unemployment will start to fall. It's happened. I'm looking at this graph. In the last 50 years, it's happened 20 times. It peaks and then it falls pretty quickly. We're hoping that's going to happen this time too.
And it will, because life does repeat itself over and over. You know, another hard thing on Maui for people is that, you know, in the unemployment figures, we lose track of the fact that a lot of people have a second job, or in some cases within a family, a third job. So, and you've got this variety of people that maybe are working several jobs and aren't really full-time on any one of them, you know, but then one family member happens to get insurance. So again, the statistics are always difficult for anyone that happens to either maybe don't have enough hours in their second job, still makes life difficult living on Maui, which is not always, it's not necessarily the easiest place in the world to live.
Yeah, you know, news has come out, and the general economic indicators like the gross domestic product, goods and services that are being warehoused, demand and retail sales, all of those indicators are in positive territory or close to positive